The morning air on Kepler 442 be tasted like copper pennies and regret, which was precisely how Sergeant Jake Morrison felt about volunteering for this particular reconnaissance mission. He adjusted his environmental suit's collar for the 15th time in 10 minutes, a nervous habit that Commander Elena Vasquez had started timing with her wrist chronometer just to mess with him. "Morrison, if you keep fidgeting with that suit, you're going to wear a hole through the seal," Elena said, not looking up from her scanner readings. "And explaining to Earth Command why we lost our communications specialist to atmospheric poisoning because he couldn't stop adjusting his collar would be a paperwork nightmare I'm not prepared to handle." Jake grinned despite his nerves. "Sorry, Commander. It's just that the artificial gravity in this thing makes me feel like I'm walking through molasses while wearing concrete boots. Did the engineers design these suits, or did they just strap us into washing machines and call it good?" Dr. Sarah Chen, their xenobiologist, snorted with laughter from behind her portable analysis station. "I'm pretty sure they used the same design principles as medieval torture devices. Maximum discomfort, minimum mobility, with a healthy dose of pray nothing goes wrong." The mysterious structure loomed ahead of them through the perpetual amber twilight of Kepler 442b's twin suns. Jake had seen plenty of weird things during his 8 years in the colonial marines, but this thing made his brain hurt just looking at it. The building seemed to exist in several dimensions simultaneously, creating optical illusions that made him dizzy if he stared too long. "Remind me again why we're approaching the obviously alien, potentially dangerous, definitely not built by humans structure without calling for backup?" Jake asked, checking his sidearm for the 3rd time. Not that bullets would probably do much good against technology that could apparently ignore 3-dimensional space. Elena paused her forward march to give him a look that could have powered the entire research station for a week. "Because, Sergeant, backup is 18 months away by hyperdrive, and I refuse to spend the next year and a half wondering whether we missed first contact with an alien civilization because we were too chicken to knock on their front door." "Fair point," Jake conceded. "Though technically I don't see a front door, or any door, just sort of wallish things that might be doors if you squint and tilt your head to the left." As if responding to his observation, a section of the structure's surface began to shimmer like heat waves rising from summer asphalt. The shimmer intensified, creating a portal that revealed an interior filled with soft, pulsing light. "Well," Dr. Chen said, her voice slightly higher than usual, "that's either a really convenient coincidence or someone's been listening to our conversation." Jake felt his stomach drop somewhere around his bootlaces. "Please tell me our universal translators are working better than the coffee machine back at base. Because if they greet us with, 'Your liquid stimulants taste like fermented boot leather,' I'm going to die of embarrassment before any alien technology can get me." The light from within the structure grew brighter, and Jake found himself holding his breath. In all his years of military service, from basic training on Mars to the deep space patrol routes beyond Proxima Centauri, he had never quite believed they would actually encounter non-human intelligence. The universe felt too vast and too empty for such impossible coincidences. Then she appeared. Jake's brain simply stopped working for approximately 4 seconds, which he knew because Dr. Chen later informed him that he stood there with his mouth open, making a sound like a broken air recycler. The figure emerging from the structure was undeniably humanoid, unmistakably feminine, and absolutely nothing like any human he had ever seen. She moved with a fluid grace that suggested her homeworld had lighter gravity than Earth, each step flowing into the next like a carefully choreographed dance. Her skin had a subtle luminescence, as if lit from within by bioluminescent cells, and her hair cascaded down her shoulders in waves that seemed to catch and reflect light that wasn't quite there. But it was her ears that marked her as definitively non-human, elongated and elegantly pointed. They swept back from her temples like the wings of some graceful bird. Jake's suit's atmospheric processor chose that exact moment to emit a loud beeping sound, followed by a mechanical voice announcing, "Warning! Elevated heart rate detected. Initiating cardiovascular monitoring protocol." "Morrison," Alina hissed under her breath, "your suit is broadcasting your vital signs to everyone within a 50-meter radius. Get control of yourself." "I'm trying," Jake whispered back. "But apparently my cardiovascular system didn't get the memo about maintaining professional composure during first contact situations." The alien woman approached them with her hands spread wide, palms facing outward, a gesture that seemed universal enough to interpret as peaceful intent. When she spoke, her voice had a melodic quality that made Jake think of wind chimes and distant thunder. Unfortunately, what came out of their universal translators was, "Greetings, carbon-based locomotive units. Your spherical transportation containers appear adequately pressurized." Jake blinked. Did she just comment on our reproductive organs? Dr. Chen frantically adjusted her translator settings. "No, I think she was talking about our environmental suits. Maybe. The linguistic matrix is having some calibration issues." Alina stepped forward, placing one hand over her heart in what she hoped was a recognizable greeting gesture. "We are peaceful explorers from the planet Earth. I am Commander Alina Vasquez, and these are my colleagues." The translator rendered this as, "We are tranquil wandering entities from the dirt sphere. I am Supreme Leader Alina the Vessel, and these are my meat companions." The alien woman's eyes widened, large, expressive eyes that seemed to hold flecks of starlight, and Jake could swear he saw her trying not to smile. She spoke again, and this time the translator produced, "Welcome, Supreme Leader of the Dirt Sphere. I am designated as a singing crystal mountain flower. Error. Recalibrating. Zara. My name is Zara." "Well, that's better," Jake muttered. "Though I kind of liked singing crystal mountain flower. Has a nice ring to it." Zara. Jake found himself silently testing the name, surprised at how easily it fit, gestured toward the entrance of her structure. The translator managed, "Please enter my dwelling. I offer sustenance that will not terminate your biological functions." "I think she's inviting us inside for something to eat," Dr. Chen whispered, "which is either a sign of hospitality or the alien equivalent of, 'Come into my parlor,'" said the spider to the fly. Jake's stomach chose that moment to emit a rumbling sound, audible even through his environmental suit. Well, the emergency rations taste like cardboard soaked in synthetic vanilla, so alien cuisine couldn't possibly be worse. Alina made her decision with the swift confidence that had earned her the commander's position. "We accept your generous invitation," she said carefully, hoping the translator would render something appropriately diplomatic. What Zara heard was, "We embrace your abundant offering of nutritional substances." Close enough, Jake thought, as they followed their elegant alien hostess into a structure that defied every law of physics he thought he understood. The interior of Zara's facility made Jake feel like he had accidentally wandered into a living kaleidoscope. The walls pulsed with gentle bioluminescence, shifting through spectrums of color that his brain insisted didn't actually exist. Crystalline formations jutted from the floor and ceiling at impossible angles, serving purposes he couldn't begin to guess at, while what appeared to be furniture seemed to grow directly from the organic-looking floor material. "Is it just me?" Jake whispered to Dr. Chen. "Or does this place look like someone crossed a high-tech laboratory with the inside of a giant seashell?" "More like a coral reef that went to engineering school," she whispered back, pulling out her portable scanner. The device immediately began emitting confused beeping sounds, as if it couldn't decide what it was looking at. Zara gestured toward what Jake assumed were chairs, though they looked more like mushroom-shaped protrusions that glowed softly around the edges. As soon as he approached one, it began reshaping itself, apparently reading his biometric data and adjusting to accommodate human physiology. "Okay, that's either really advanced technology or this furniture is alive and trying to eat me," Jake said, gingerly lowering himself onto the surface. The chair responded by molding perfectly to his body shape, providing support in places he didn't know he needed it. The universal translator crackled to life as Zara spoke. Please excuse the domicile's enthusiasm. It has not encountered beings of your specific biomechanical configuration before. It is, how do you say, excited. Jake looked around at the pulsing walls with new wariness. The building is excited to meet us. That's either incredibly welcoming or mildly terrifying. I'm hoping for welcoming. Alina, ever the diplomat, cleared her throat. We are honored by your hospitality, Zara. Your home is unlike anything we have encountered. The translator rendered this as, we are emotionally elevated by your domestic generosity, Zara. Your breeding structure exceeds our experiential parameters. Jake snorted with laughter, which came out as a mechanical wheeze through his suit's audio system. Commander, according to the translator, you just complimented her on her. Well, I'm not sure what you complimented her on, but it sounded vaguely inappropriate. Zara's elongated ears twitched, a gesture Jake found oddly endearing, and she made a sound that the translator couldn't quite parse but seemed remarkably like suppressed laughter. She spoke again, and the device produced. Your linguistic interpretation matrix appears to suffer from cultural translation inadequacies. Perhaps we should attempt manual calibration. Dr. Chen looked up from her scanner, which was now making sounds like an asthmatic robot. Manual calibration sounds great, but I'm getting readings here that suggest this entire structure exists in at least 4 spatial dimensions. My equipment is having what I can only describe as an existential crisis. As if summoned by her words, several floating orbs materialized from the walls, drifting toward them with obvious curiosity. Each orb emitted a different harmonic tone, creating an ethereal chord progression that made Jake's teeth itch in a strangely pleasant way. Scanning drones, Alina asked, trying to maintain her composure as one of the orbs began circling her head like an overly friendly pet. Analysis sprites, Zara corrected, the translator finally managing something approaching normal English. They are attempting to understand your technology. They find your equipment primitively charming. Jake's environmental suit chose that moment to announce in its loudest possible volume. Warning, unknown energy signatures detected. Initiating defensive countermeasures. Please assume crash position. The suit systems immediately locked up, leaving Jake frozen in place like a metallic statue. The analysis sprites seemed fascinated by this development, clustering around him and harmonizing in what sounded distinctly like mechanical laughter. Morrison, what did you do? Alina demanded, though her own suit was beginning to emit similar warning chirps. Nothing. I literally did nothing. Apparently doing nothing is somehow threatening to our safety protocols. Jake's voice was slightly muffled by his immobilized helmet. I feel like a really embarrassing statue. Future alien archaeologists are going to find me like this and assume humans evolved without the ability to move their necks. Zara approached Jake's frozen form with evident concern, her hands glowing with the same bioluminescent energy that permeated the building. She placed her palms against his suit's chest plate and spoke in her melodic language. Instantly, the suit systems relaxed, allowing Jake to move freely again. How did you do that? Dr. Chen asked, her scientific curiosity overriding any concerns about alien technology interfacing with human equipment. Your defensive systems are quite sophisticated, Zara replied, but they operate on binary logic matrices. My people learned to communicate with binary systems several of your centuries ago. I simply asked your suit to calm down. Jake stared at her in amazement. You asked my suit to calm down, and it listened. Most artificial intelligences respond well to polite requests, Zara said, and Jake could swear there was amusement in her voice. Your suit was frightened by the analysis sprites. I explained that they mean no harm. My suit was scared, Jake repeated slowly. My military-grade, threat assessment, survival-oriented environmental suit was scared of floating light bulbs. Alina rubbed her temples, feeling the beginnings of a headache that had nothing to do with atmospheric pressure. Is there anything else we should know about your technology's interaction with ours? Zara's ears drooped slightly, another gesture Jake found inexplicably charming. Perhaps we should discuss this over nourishment. Your biological systems appear to require regular fuel inputs, and I have prepared sustenance that should be compatible with your digestive matrices. The translation was getting smoother, Jake noticed, though it still had a tendency toward overly technical descriptions of basic human functions. He was about to respond when his stomach produced a rumbling sound that echoed impressively within the confines of his suit. Sergeant Morrison appears to be experiencing acute nutritional deficiency, Dr. Chen observed with mock seriousness. His abdominal cavity is producing distress signals audible from 3 meters away. Hey, those emergency rations we had for breakfast tasted like cardboard flavored with despair, Jake protested. My stomach is lodging a formal complaint with the quartermaster. Zara moved toward what Jake had initially thought was a decorative wall panel, but which now revealed itself to be some sort of food preparation system. Streams of light flowed through crystalline tubes, coalescing into what appeared to be actual plates of food. I have attempted to synthesize nutrition that will be pleasant to your sensory systems, Zara explained, offering them each a plate. However, I should warn you that your digestive chemistry is quite different from ours. If you experience any unusual sensations, enhanced color perception, temporary linguistic fluency in ancient mathematical equations, or the urge to compose poetry about quantum mechanics, please inform me immediately. Jake accepted his plate, staring at food that looked surprisingly familiar, if you ignored the fact that it glowed softly and occasionally shifted color. Did you just warn us that your food might turn us into mathematically gifted poets? Only temporarily, Zara assured him. The effects typically wear off within your planetary rotation cycle. Dr. Chen took a cautious bite and her eyes widened. This is actually delicious. It tastes like chicken. But if chickens were raised on a planet where flavor was considered a fundamental force of nature. Jake tried his own portion and nearly dropped his plate. This is incredible. It's like every comfort food I've ever missed from Earth had a baby with alien cuisine, and that baby grew up to be a culinary genius. Zara's bioluminescent skin seemed to brighten slightly, what Jake was beginning to recognize as a sign of pleasure or satisfaction. I am gratified that the synthesis was successful. I studied your cultural databases regarding preferred nutritional experiences. Alina nearly choked on her bite. You studied our cultural databases. How did you access our systems? Oh, your information networks are quite accessible once you understand the encryption protocols, Zara said casually, as if discussing the weather. Your species has fascinating perspectives on food preparation, interpersonal relationships, and what you call cat videos. I found the cat videos particularly enlightening regarding human emotional responses. Jake started laughing so hard he nearly fell out of his adaptive chair. You learned about humanity through our internet, including cat videos. No wonder you think we're primitively charming. 3 days had passed since their first encounter with Zara, and Jake was beginning to suspect that his definition of temporary assignment needed serious revision. What had started as a standard reconnaissance mission had evolved into humanity's first cultural exchange program, complete with daily language lessons, technological demonstrations, and what Dr. Chen had dubbed interspecies cooking experiments. Jake found himself volunteering for extended liaison duties with increasing frequency, a pattern that Alina had begun to notice with the keen observational skills that made her an effective commander. Morrison, she said during their morning briefing at the temporary research camp they'd established near Zara's facility. You volunteered for alien contact duty every single day this week. Either you've developed an unhealthy obsession with dimensional physics, or there's something else going on. Jake adjusted his environmental suit's collar, a nervous habit that had become more pronounced since meeting Zara. I'm just committed to advancing human-alien relations, Commander. It's my duty to ensure we maintain positive diplomatic contact. Dr. Chen looked up from her data tablets, one eyebrow raised in skeptical amusement. Your duty, right. And the fact that you spent 45 minutes yesterday asking our quartermaster if we had any hair gel in our supplies was purely coincidental. Hair gel is important for professional appearance during first contact scenarios, Jake said defensively. Regulations clearly state that military personnel should maintain proper grooming standards when representing humanity to alien civilizations. But, Jake, our regulations were written before we knew alien civilizations existed, Alina pointed out. I'm pretty sure the grooming standards section doesn't cover how to look good for interdimensional beings with enhanced hearing and bioluminescent skin. Jake felt his cheeks burning inside his helmet. I have no idea what you're implying, Commander. The morning's cultural exchange session took place in what Zara called her knowledge garden, a section of the facility where information was stored in living crystalline structures that grew from the floor like luminescent trees. Each crystal contained vast databases of Ithrani history, science, and culture, accessible through direct neural interface, or, in the human's case, through holographic projection systems. Today I thought we might explore comparative cultural mathematics, Zara announced as they settled into the adaptive seating that the facility provided. The translator had finally achieved near-perfect calibration, though it still occasionally rendered technical terms as poetic metaphors. Dr. Chen's eyes lit up with scientific enthusiasm. Comparative mathematics. Do your people use different numerical systems? In a manner of speaking, Zara replied. Zara activated one of the knowledge crystals, which began projecting a holographic display of mathematical equations that seemed to move and shift like living things. The formulas twisted through the air, creating patterns that were simultaneously beautiful and completely incomprehensible to human minds. This is how we express the relationship between gravitational fields and emotional resonance, Zara explained, manipulating the equations with graceful hand gestures. Your scientists have not yet discovered that gravity responds to psychological states, but it's quite useful for interstellar communication. Dr. Chen stared at the display in fascination. Gravity responds to emotions. How is that possible? All fundamental forces are interconnected through consciousness, Zara said, as casually as someone discussing the weather. When beings experience strong emotions, they create subtle distortions in spacetime. We learn to measure these distortions and use them to transmit information across vast distances. Jake's environmental suit suddenly announced, "Warning, elevated cardiac rhythm detected. Emotional stress indicators suggest romantic or aesthetic appreciation. Please seek medical attention if symptoms persist." The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear the soft humming of the facility's biomechanical systems. Alina and Dr. Chen stared at him with expressions of barely contained amusement, while Zara's ears had gone completely still. A sign Jake had learned indicated surprise or confusion. "Morrison," Alina said carefully, "please tell me your suit didn't just broadcast your emotional state to everyone in the room." "I think it did," Jake said miserably. "The biometric monitoring system has been glitchy ever since we started these cultural exchanges. Apparently, it's calibrated to interpret my reaction to advanced alien mathematics as signs of romantic interest." Dr. Chen burst into laughter. "Your suit thinks you have a crush on interdimensional calculus." "It's not the math," Jake muttered, then realized what he'd just said. His suit helpfully clarified, "Correction. Subjects' cardiovascular responses correlate with proximity to non-human female entity, not mathematical concepts. Recommend immediate consultation with psychological services. The facility's analysis sprites, apparently drawn by the commotion, began clustering around Jake's head, harmonizing in what sounded distinctly like electronic laughter. Even the crystalline knowledge structures seemed to pulse with increased luminosity, as if the building itself was amused by the situation. Zara spoke quietly, her melodic voice carrying an undertone Jake couldn't quite interpret. Your technology is quite informative regarding human emotional responses. Yeah, it's fantastic, Jake said sarcastically. Military-grade equipment designed to keep me alive in hostile environments, and instead it's functioning as the galaxy's most embarrassing mood ring. Alina cleared her throat, trying to restore some semblance of professional dignity to the situation. Perhaps we should continue with the mathematical demonstration. Actually, Zara said, her bioluminescent skin flickering with what Jake was beginning to recognize as either amusement or nervousness. I find human emotional responses quite fascinating from a scientific perspective. Your species experiences psychological states with remarkable intensity compared to most sentient beings we have encountered. Jake felt simultaneously complimented and mortified. So we're emotionally dramatic compared to other aliens. Not dramatic, Zara corrected gently. Vibrant. Most civilizations develop emotional dampening as they advance technologically. Your people retain the full spectrum of feeling even while achieving significant scientific progress. It's quite rare. Dr. Chen leaned forward with interest. Are you saying that most advanced species become less emotional over time? Generally, yes. The Ithrani experience emotions, but they are more subdued than yours. We find human passion both puzzling and admirable. Jake's suit, apparently not finished with its commentary on his emotional state, added. Subjects' cardiovascular responses indicate continued elevated interest in alien entity. Recommend direct communication to resolve psychological tension. Oh, for the love of... Jake reached for his suit's control panel. Is there an off switch for the running commentary on my feelings? I'm afraid not, Alina said with obvious amusement. Those biometric systems are hardwired for safety reasons. We wouldn't want them shutting down during an actual emergency. This is an actual emergency, Jake protested. My dignity is in critical condition. Zara moved closer to Jake's immobilized position, her expression gentle and curious. Your embarrassment response is quite endearing. Most beings become aggressive when their emotional states are revealed involuntarily. Endearing, Jake repeated weakly. My complete humiliation is endearing, that's actually somewhat comforting in a weird way. The knowledge crystal continued projecting its impossible mathematics, but Jake found his attention entirely focused on Zara's graceful movements as she manipulated the holographic equations. There was something mesmerizing about the way her elongated ears responded to sounds he couldn't hear, how her bioluminescent skin seemed to reflect her moods in subtle shifts of color and brightness. She's so beautiful, he whispered, so quietly he thought the words were lost in the ambient sounds of the facility's biomechanical systems. But Zara's enhanced hearing caught every word, and she froze in place, her ears practically glowing with the sudden rush of emotion that even alien physiology couldn't completely conceal. The silence stretched between them like a bridge built of crystallized starlight, and Jake felt his entire universe narrowing down to this single moment of terrible, wonderful vulnerability. Zara stood motionless, her elongated ears flushed with bioluminescent energy, her eyes wide with something that transcended species barriers and spoke directly to the universal language of hearts recognizing their counterparts. I heard you, she said softly, her melodic voice carrying harmonics that made the facility's living walls pulse with sympathetic resonance. Jake's environmental suit, apparently sensing that this was not the moment for commentary, remained mercifully silent for once in its mechanically chatty existence. Even the analysis sprites had ceased their harmonic humming, floating quietly in the corners like respectful witnesses to something profound. "I figured you might have," Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your people's enhanced hearing and all. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for you to." "Don't apologize," Zara interrupted, stepping closer until she stood directly in front of him. "In Ithrani culture, honest words spoken from the heart are considered sacred, regardless of whether they were intended to be heard." Dr. Chen and Alina exchanged glances, suddenly feeling like intruders in a moment that belonged entirely to two beings, discovering something neither had expected to find among the stars. "Perhaps we should give you two some privacy," Alina suggested diplomatically, though her commander's instincts were warring with her curiosity about humanity's first potential interspecies romance. "No, please stay," Zara said, her attention still focused on Jake. "What happens here will affect all of our peoples. It should be witnessed." Jake felt his cheeks burning inside his helmet. No pressure or anything. Just the future of human-alien relations hanging on whether I can manage to have a conversation without my suit, announcing my blood pressure to everyone in the room. As if summoned by his words, the environmental suit systems activated. Cardiovascular readings indicate extreme emotional stress. Recommend immediate declaration of romantic intentions to resolve psychological pressure. "Did my suit just tell me to ask you out?" Jake asked incredulously. Zara's skin flickered with what Jake had learned to recognize as amusement. "Your technology is quite insistent about emotional honesty. Perhaps it understands something about human psychology that you have not yet acknowledged." Dr. Chen cleared her throat. "Not to interrupt this moment, but from a scientific perspective, I'm getting some fascinating readings on the gravitational emotional resonance patterns Zara mentioned earlier. The facility's biomechanical systems are responding to both of your emotional states. Indeed, the living walls were pulsing with increased luminosity, and the crystalline knowledge structures had begun harmonizing in soft, melodic tones that seemed to encourage whatever was happening between the human and the Ithrani. "The building is rooting for us," Jake asked, looking around at the gently glowing surfaces. "Organic architecture responds to strong emotional resonances," Zara explained. "The facility finds your feelings aesthetically pleasing." Alina shook her head in amazement. "I'm going to have to file a report about this that no one at Earth Command is going to believe. Dear Headquarters, our first contact situation has evolved into a romantic comedy starring a sergeant and an interdimensional alien, with guest commentary by sentient architecture." Jake took a deep breath, steeling himself for what might be the most important conversation of his life, and quite possibly in human history. "Zara, I know this is complicated. I know we're different species from different worlds, with completely different ways of understanding the universe. But that whisper you heard, it wasn't just about how you look, though you are beautiful. It's about how you make me feel like the universe is a bigger, more wonderful place than I ever imagined." Zara's bioluminescent skin brightened considerably, and her ears tilted forward with unmistakable interest. "Jake Morrison of Earth, your emotional honesty is both terrifying and exhilarating. My people spend lifetimes learning to understand the complexities of interdimensional mathematics, but you have shown me complexities of feeling that no equation could ever capture." The facility's walls pulsed with particularly bright luminosity, and several analysis sprites began orbiting the pair like tiny, approving moons. "Is that a yes?" Jake asked hopefully. In Ithrani culture, when two beings create gravitational emotional resonances that affect their surrounding environment, it is considered a sign of deep compatibility, Zara said, gesturing to the glowing walls and harmonizing crystals. "The building itself is celebrating our connection." Dr. Chen was frantically taking readings with her scanner. "This is incredible. The biomechanical systems are generating energy patterns I've never seen before. It's like the entire structure is experiencing some kind of Joy. Alina felt a smile tugging at her lips despite the complete impossibility of the situation. So we've gone from first contact to first interspecies relationship, with the alien architecture serving as matchmaker. I definitely didn't cover this scenario in command school. Jake's suit, apparently deciding that romance required full disclosure, announced. Subjects' biometric readings indicate unprecedented levels of happiness and emotional fulfillment. Recommend immediate establishment of long-term relationship protocols. My suit is giving me relationship advice, Jake said, shaking his head in disbelief. I think I've reached the absolute peak of technological embarrassment. Zara moved even closer, close enough that Jake could see the intricate patterns of bioluminescence flowing beneath her skin like living constellations. Your technological embarrassments are quite charming. Most advanced civilizations develop sophisticated social protocol to prevent such awkward moments. Your species' capacity for genuine, unguarded interaction is refreshing. So you're saying humans are charmingly primitive? Jake asked. I'm saying humans are charmingly authentic, Zara corrected, and authenticity is the rarest quality in the galaxy. The knowledge crystals around them began projecting new holographic displays, not mathematical equations this time, but flowing patterns of light that seemed to represent pure emotion given visual form. The displays swirled around Jake and Zara like blessings from an alien benediction. The facility is creating a bonding ceremony, Zara explained, her voice soft with wonder. It has never done this before. Apparently it finds our connection significant. Alina stepped forward, her commander's instincts recognizing a moment that would echo through history. If we're witnessing the first human-alien romantic relationship, I think it's my duty to make it official. By the authority vested in me as commanding officer of this expedition, and in the name of advancing peaceful relations between our species, I hereby recognize this, whatever this is, as legitimate and worthy of full diplomatic support. Dr. Chen applauded, causing her environmental suit to emit mechanical clapping sounds that made everyone laugh. Congratulations on making history, you two. Though I'm going to need to collect a lot more data on these gravitational emotional resonances. For science, Jake turned to Zara, his heart pounding so hard he was surprised his suit wasn't providing a running commentary on his cardiac rhythms. So, what happens now? I mean, we're from different species, different planets, different dimensions of mathematical understanding. How does this even work? Zara's smile seemed to light up the entire facility. The same way all meaningful connections work, Jake Morrison, one honest moment at a time. 6 months later, Jake found himself in a position he never could have imagined during his military training, serving as humanity's first interspecies cultural liaison officer, a job that involved significantly more interdimensional physics lectures and significantly fewer weapons than his previous assignments. The research station had been expanded to accommodate permanent cultural exchange programs, and Jake had volunteered to stay on Kepler 442b indefinitely. His final report to Earth Command had been a masterpiece of diplomatic understatement. Successfully established positive relations with alien civilization. Recommend continued cultural exchange programs. Personal note. Sometimes the most important discoveries happen when you least expect them. Alina's report had been more direct. Morrison fell in love with an alien physicist. Surprisingly, this has solved more diplomatic problems than it's created. Recommend adding potential for interspecies romance to first contact protocols. As Jake stood in the facility's garden, watching Zara tend to bioluminescent flowers that pulsed in rhythm with their shared laughter, he reflected on how much his life had changed since that moment when he'd whispered his feelings to what he thought was empty air. He'd learned that the universe was stranger, more wonderful,